Okay, one of the most common things that I hear people say is everything you're saying in your videos I can relate to and makes so much sense, but I can't get started. I'm having such a hard time like just going for it, just jumping in, just really like surrendering and just trusting this process. So, I've thought about some recovery tips. I started reflecting on my own recovery and I just jotted down several actually, tips that I did in my recovery. Now, obviously, everyone's recovery is going to be different, and just because I did this in my recovery doesn't mean everyone has to do it this way in their recovery, or else they're not going to recover. I hope it doesn't come across that way. Sometimes I feel like maybe I talk like my way or no way in regards to like the specific things I did within my recovery. However, I really do believe like the most efficient way to recover is to eat unrestricted and to rest. So couple of tips I'm just going to go through. The first overall, like very general tip I would say is the more aggressive and the more bold and the more tenacious that you can be when you start, the better. So I don't really believe that like going slow and steady or kind of like taking these baby steps to try to get yourself to completely go all in, knowing that you're going to get there eventually, oftentimes isn't sustainable. It's better than not doing anything. So like if you're deeply entrenched in your eating disorder and it's either stay there and do nothing or dive like completely in, then maybe baby steps would be a good thing. But if you really are serious about like, I want to get this over with as fast as possible, and I really want to be sure that I rewire this time, I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you be as aggressive as you can when you start. So the very first couple of days that I was like knew that something was different about this recovery were monumental for me. Huge. Made a huge difference for my recovery because I first assessed my environment. So my general first tip would be look around at your environment and see what are the things that you can set in place or get rid of that are going to help ensure success, that are going to help you to be able to thrive in your recovery. So one of the very first things I knew I had to do was throw out first of all, my scale that I weighed myself on, my scale that I used for food, my food scale, my Fitbit that I would track all my steps and my calories burnt and all that crap, my FitnessPal, right? So like all these forms of measurement I had to just be done with. I knew that I couldn't keep them around because at that time I couldn't trust myself to be like disciplined enough to not use those things if they were within my reach. So I got my kids involved. I grabbed my scales and I put them on our driveway, and I got in, at the time we had a minivan, and I got in my minivan and I told them like one kid videoed it and the other one like set it right under the tire, and then I just went forward and back, forward and back, forward and back, and the thing just like started cracking and crunching, but like the numbers still worked. So I like would get back in the car and start going back and forth again, and it would like the thing didn't want to die. I'm serious. It was like symbolic. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a fight to get this thing destroyed completely. So I just kept going back and forth, and finally to like ensure that it was completely unusable and destroyed, we got a hammer and just like hammered the crap out of it. So rolled over back and forth with my car a couple times, hit it with a hammer, the scales were done. The food scale is a little bit more delicate and easier to break, but yeah, that weight scale was hard. So that was one of the things. And not only like, you can just like toss your scale in the trash or donate it or something, but it just felt so good. It just felt so fun to just, I don't know, like just destroy it. Like I just felt like I was like funneling all of this like anger at the eating disorder into like this action. So that's what I mean when I say like be aggressive. Like, yeah, you can toss it in the trash, but what would be better is if you ran over it with the car or dropped it off a bridge, or I don't know, like you could be creative. Do something with it, but make it, make it bold. The other thing I did was, and this was way harder than running over my scale, was getting rid of my safe foods. So a lot of times I'll hear my clients will try to convince me that like they're working through their safe foods, and once they're gone, they're gonna like start filling them in with more challenging foods. And I'm like, well, that could be a week, 2 weeks. I don't know how much you've hoarded or stockpiled. That could be months, like why waste time? And why not take advantage of the rewiring process here? Why not get a big black trash bag and just go through your kitchen and do an overhaul and get rid of like all your safe foods. You may be left with nothing. You may be left with maybe just those things that you had like hidden that were challenging foods that you just hoarded. I don't know. But getting rid of those safe foods for me was like losing a child. Like, I know that sounds so bad, but that's what it felt like. It was so hard for me to actually like throw them away, like watch them go to waste, because they were so valuable to me. It was like I was like, my life was being threatened by doing that. But also another thing of just taking that out to the trash cans and just being like, I'm done, tossing them out. So those were things that, like the very first day or two, I think maybe the second day of my recovery, that I was like setting myself up. Okay, I have no more scales. I can't measure or weigh anything. I don't have any safe foods in the house. So now, and then the third thing I did was drive to the store, grocery store, and just like, my cart was, it was like a 10-year-old kid that had like never eaten sugar before or something. Like, it was intense. I loaded my cart up with like all my childhood favorite foods, all the foods that I knew that I loved, all the foods that I was buying for my kids for years that I didn't let myself eat, and just like piled my cart full of all that stuff. So in my house, I had no low fat, no light, no low carb, no sugar free. Everything was like real food. Very challenging, very scary, but it almost took the pressure away from me when I had to make a decision, like, what am I going to eat today, or what do I want right now? Because I just knew that like my choices are all going to help me to rewire. Everything that's in my environment right now is food that's challenging for me. So I don't have to have like the safe food in the corner and then the challenging food, and I'm kind of trying to balance both, but I don't want the safe food to go bad, but I also really should be challenging this, and then I don't know, how can I integrate them, or how can I make this one more challenging so that I don't have to throw it away? It just took all that decision making away. So I highly recommend that. Again, it's just saving time. Like, it's just doing something so different from what you've done, that at the beginning stages, in the first couple days, it's imperative that you do that. The other thing that I did was, obviously, I was cold turkey, right, on exercise when I was really committed to my recovery. And so instead of just not exercising, I not only didn't exercise, but I filled that time with eating, like really scary foods. I can like vividly remember several occasions, but I can vividly remember one of going to, I think it was Starbucks, but I remember sitting in my car with this like giant muffin, and it was the time that I would have normally been at the gym, and I had already eaten breakfast at that point, like